This session was going to be called Agile Management and Dealing with Disruptions. But I've canned that idea. I've put it aside. Instead, we're going to look at how's your program plan changed because of what you've learnt from your COVID experience and what the world has learnt from its 2 years of COVID lockdown. That is one of the greatest disruptions of the last century to business, what we have just experienced in the last 2 years. So what have you learnt from that? How has your program changed because of that? This is a real life example of what it means to be agile in your management and how to deal with disruptions. So for me, it's been monumental. So I'll just share from my personal story, my personal reflection of what it's meant and what I have learned from the COVID lockdown. In my stage of life, when COVID occurred, I just entered into what they call retirement. I'd finished my previous job with Whitcliffe and I was retiring for the quiet life. And I was quite looking forward to that. And part of the reason I was looking forward to that was that I had become really tired of too much travel. So I thought I'll enjoy some quieter time to walk and reflect, etc. Then COVID came. And my quiet life changed because as COVID came, I was invited by using Zoom into an international team to look at how we develop consultants and how we can better develop translation consultants and others. I did not need to leave my home to be part of that international team. So what had changed? What had changed was that travel was not now the criteria for participation in an international team. I had assumed that travel would always be the criteria for such participation. But with the COVID lockdown and nobody able to leave their own country in many cases or enter other countries like Australia, Zoom came to prominence. And what I discovered was that you can achieve a lot through well-focused Zoom consultations. And the outcome of those consultations, for example, was a growth in doing translation consultant work using Zoom. And the first one we tried, maybe 3 years ago, and I did an evaluation of that Zoom consultation, which was in Solomon Islands, with the consultants coming from Taiwan and Singapore, but the translation team in Honiara in the Solomon Islands and the advisor in Brisbane. What we found was that the Zoom consultation, translation consultant checking, went extremely well. It went well for a number of reasons. One, there was an established relationship between the advisor and the team. And the other was that there was sufficient broadband and good reception for it to go ahead without any disruption. And the other one was that focused people's attention very clearly on the task. So that was a massive change. And since then, we've been implementing such consultant checking. And the last one was a translation consultant from Papua New Guinea, a Papua New Guinean, did a Zoom consultation check with a translation team in Solomon Islands. So it was Melanesian brother supporting Melanesian brother in checking the scriptures and getting it ready for publication. And again, the Zoom consultant check went really well. Now, why do I tell you that story? Well, it would be a tragedy if we went back to the old way of doing it. If we went back to having to fly people from around the world to be at a certain place at a certain time with a certain group of people at a cost that would be 4 to 5 times the amount it costs for a Zoom consultation. It would be a tragedy if that became the norm, because with Zoom consultant checking, we're able to do more and we're able to access more people than we could before. Retired consultants, for example, were now able to do a Zoom from their home anywhere around the world. the proviso was that there was already some established relationship and understanding, cultural understanding. But that is a massive change. So what has changed in your program plan because of what you have learnt from COVID? I have one other personal example, and that is COVID is the reason I'm standing here in front of you and sharing with you about what I've learnt about program planning. A number of years ago, I was asked by your organisation if I'd come and teach or be on staff for a program planning course at your training institute, or literacy, which is my other love. But in the context of the work I was doing, I just did not have the time to do that and to participate. But with COVID and lockdown and unable to move, the idea of online learning has grown, and the idea of creating a community through using both online learning and using Zoom, for example, that it is possible to create a community that can connect together. And so that has opened up new possibilities around mentoring and training. And in this case here, the idea that you could have a course that is free, comes at no expense to those who receive it, and can invite into the if you like, into your room, people from all over the world who have an interest in this topic, is an amazing opportunity. So that we should never, in my mind, if I went back to program planning, has to be taught in a location, with people in the classroom. It would be a tragedy. It would be a backward step. But we didn't see this coming until we had this massive disruption of COVID. So again, I asked the question, because it's a really important question. There will be disruptions right through life, right through a program. There will always be disruptions, which can be for good or for evil, or both. But a flexible team that is not tied to their program plan as written and not exactly tied to their activities as they think they should be performed, who have that freedom to consider new possibilities as the environment changes, they are best able to adapt and make the most of the so-called disruption. So look at your program plan that you've written. Have you been influenced by what you did pre-COVID? Or does it contain the new things that you've learnt in the post-COVID world? Now, one of the assumptions, of course, you make massive assumptions in this, but one of the assumptions that I'm making is that the networked world will only grow, that the online possibilities will only grow, that communicating across the world through things like Zoom will only improve. And if that is so, not just into the major cities, but also into the more isolated places, how might a program, language program development or whatever project you're involved with, how might that change and how might that take advantage of those changes? I look forward to what you've got to share with each other as you discuss it together and what principles you come up with, and to see how that disruption has given impetus, the COVID disruption has given impetus to your program going forward.